Hello and welcome back to Microvellum Live. We are broadcasting here from Southern Oregon at the headquarters of Microvellum Software. We are glad that you are here with us today. Well, this week we are going to be talking about how to leverage software for residential cabinet manufacturing. Throughout our discussion, we're going to be reviewing some tips that will help you focus on what really matters in your business, the key areas that you need to think about if you want to grow your business. And this week we get the opportunity to talk to Stillwater Cabinetry and talk with owner Ben Brower and about his transition from a home builder to a cabinet manufacturer up in Michigan and what he's done to really streamline his operation. So thanks, Ben, for being here with us this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome. Also joining us here today is one of our longtime technicians and now account manager covering some territory here in the U.S. is Isaac Dale. Thank you also for being here and stepping up to lead our conversation.
No problem. Good afternoon, Clay.
Yep. So this is such a great topic, very timely indeed. We're hearing a lot about how the markets are changing, how consumers are demanding more custom cabinetry, and sometimes building cabinetry that goes beyond the simple cabinetry and into some fairly complicated products. And what this means is you have to have the right tools in place to stay ahead of the competition. So personally, I'm really looking forward to getting into the topic today. But before we do, we have a lot of first-time viewers with us today. So let's run through how we do things here on Microvellum Live, what you can expect. So first up, you've probably noticed that everybody's mics have been muted, but we do want to hear from you. So to join in on the conversation, you can simply just open up that Q&A panel that you can see most likely somewhere down the bottom of your screen. It's a button Q&A on labeled with Q&A. So you can open up that, and that is the interface that we use for questions. We have a number of techs helping out behind the scenes, so feel free to ask a question at any time, and we'll see if we can even get Ben to answer a few of those live for you. We are recording the episode today, so you can catch up on it at any time a little later this week on our website at microvellum.com/live. And finally, we are also streaming on YouTube right now. Looks like we already have a number of people watching there. So if that's a platform that you prefer, you can tune into there as well, and we will be monitoring the questions from that site as well. All right. Well, Isaac and Ben, what do you say? Are we about ready to kick things off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, hey, Ben, thank you for taking some time out of your busy day and obviously very busy business to work with us. Just a little bit of background I learned from you is that you've been in this industry or these forms of the contracting construction business since age 9 with your father and grandfather, and then advanced to from home building, as Clay had mentioned, all the way to full-time cabinet making in 2016. I was quite impressed with the fact that you've seen between 75 to 100% growth year over year for the past 3 years. So that's amazing. So, give us some background. How did you get to that point? And just tell us what we don't know about you.
Well, like you mentioned, my grandfather and my father were both general contractors, residential, pretty much exclusively. So grew up on a job site, never really had another job. Like you said, since age 9. So, a lot of background just on how things fit and finish and go together, but predominantly interior finish carpenters, trim guys. So we installed a lot of other people's cabinetry over the years. My uncle, my dad's brother, had a cabinet shop in Southern California for 35 years. So just kind of always been around the business, if you will. And when I started my own business in Northern Michigan, obviously started as a general contractor. That's the history that I had. And we just got to the point where we were building, I should explain, we live in a very, very high-end tourist market. So it's relatively rural area, but we have kind of a unique demographic in that a lot of money comes here from other parts of the country, particularly for second homes and vacation homes. So got to the point where we were general contracting, $2, $3, $4, $5 million houses, and there just wasn't a cabinet solution nearby. So Stillwater really started inside my general contracting company just to build cabinets for our projects, so that we could get the kind of the fit and finish and the design flexibility that we wanted. And, over the course of 3 years or so building for my own projects, I had other contractors or local friends who said, hey, would you build cabinets for my project too? And it got to the point where I was expanding both companies and just had to look ahead and I couldn't do both companies really, really well because they both got too big. So like you mentioned a couple years ago, 2016, did a little market study and decided it was a lot less competition in just the cabinetry end than the general contracting. So kind of pushed all in on Stillwater, and that it was basically at the same time that we revamped how we purchased Microvellum at the same time. How do we improve our processes so that if Stillwater is going to be the answer for all of us moving forward, well, how can we do it the best way possible?
So did that also include machinery or just strictly software?
At the specific time, it was mostly software. We already had a CNC router at the time that we had brought online as our smartest piece of machinery at the time, and it just came down to we kind of maxed out our previous software solution as far as customization and how far it could take us, how much different things we wanted to do and wanted to communicate, not only with the client but with the guys in the shop as well. So we had to make a change to a different platform that allowed us to customize all of the nuances of what we do more easily.
Gotcha. Okay. So what, as you were going along with this, did you run into any, pains along the way? I'm going to imagine this wasn't just all, rainbows and bunnies. So what was your experience moving forward with the software and getting into full-time cabinetry?
Well, I think that largely, I do like rainbows and bunnies, but no, it wasn't all that. I think that probably I miscalculated on, maybe this was hubris, but miscalculated on how long it was going to take to get up and running on a completely, rethought out engineering platform. So I guess the learning curve would have been, my number one thing would be the learning curve that it took to get to the point where we are now was probably an extra year from what I thought it was going to be, maybe 16 months longer than I thought it was going to be. And so that would be my cautionary tale, I guess, was the ultimate objective with, a new software platform, an engineering software platform for me was always efficiency. So how do we not only improve the client experience? What do they see? What do they feel? What do they know about Stillwater? Because we all know, people who are in the industry, we all know that it's messy at times. You make mistakes, you throw stuff in the dumpster, you redo things. How do we minimize those things, and how do we not expose the client to those things? So it's always 73 and sunny when the client talks about us. And to me, that all started with communication, and so that everybody has the same information in real time. And that communication obviously has to be central to the engineering part of it. At the end of the day, however many emails we're sending or other correspondence we're communicating with our client or with each other, at the end of the day, we all get paid when product goes on a truck. So how do we communicate more effectively the information about that product so it's as efficient as possible at every single work center? How do we carve minutes and hours out of the production process at all the little steps? So that was the brainchild, that efficiency behind partnering with Microvellum to create a single database where all of that engineering and product data lived, so that we could, whether we're in the engineering department, in the design department, or we're running the CNC machine or assembling cabinets, we all know what the plan is. That was the initial problem to solve, and then there's been a lot of nuance added to it since then, but that was the initial objective.
Gotcha. So, as you were doing this, what benefits did you find in the Microvellum software? You mentioned some of those, being able to capture data in that single database. What were those, what were those to be able to do in your shop? What benefits did they bring you?
I think that, and there's a lot of them. I think probably the single largest one is the flexibility of the program itself. So, and I won't lie to you, it's challenging. Like it's not super easy to learn. And that, like I said, that was probably my biggest miss on the timing was, in hindsight, it makes sense that it would be difficult to learn or take some time, because the nature of the level of customization that you can do to it means that it's complicated. There's a lot of features and options available, which means you have to understand how those impact, at every point. But I think probably the single largest benefit would be with access to, we draw products one time. The contractor, the homeowner, the client marks them up, moves them around, changes from doors to drawers, whatever the features or options, selects their finish and wood species. But at the end of the day, the drawing that they're looking at is a production ready drawing. So we don't have any double entry as far as, drafting software and then later converting it into production, drawings to get engineering data. So that was a big advantage. It does slow down my front office a little bit, if I'm being honest, because of the level of capability that the software has. It's a little bit cumbersome to make quick changes and to re-get drawing. We've gotten much better at it than initially, but it takes more time. So let's say we spend on average 10 to 15% more time in the front office. The advantage that we gained was every single work center in production is exponentially faster. So when I'm in the front office, if I was just in engineering, I might say, man, this takes me longer than it used to take me, which it is true. But when I'm at the front office and say, yeah, but our net total of production hours, counting engineering all the way through to the guy driving the truck, is substantially reduced, because once we have all of that engineering data in one place, we can pull out just the information that we want or need at an individual work cell and put it on a customized report. So a lot of engineering software, including our previous software, you had some of the information, but it was usually piled in with a whole bunch of other stuff that you didn't need right then. And I can show, if we have time, I can show a couple of reports that I'm talking about later on in the conversation. But having the ability to say that, this guy is going to execute only this task, so all we need is this information right here. We have a 3-ring binder that we send out with every work order that just has 8 or 12 tabs, divides all of the reports up into tabs. So the guys in the shop know to flip to tab 4 or tab 6, depending on what they're looking for. And they have the information they need right in front of them to finish that and move on to the next task.
Very nice. Sounds like a very well organized shop. And as we're seeing of your shop, it's a very clean, organized place to begin with. So that's great. Yeah. So as far as, what you are doing there, you're trying to increase accuracy and manufacturing and be able to speed up the entire process. You mentioned to me before that with some of the changes moving into Microvellum, that, it adjusted the way you looked at having the right team in the right place to do the job. And that you had also mentioned about how your existing processes, that you adjusted your view a little bit on what those were. Could you share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. I think, so we like a lot of companies, we have a series of core values that we have written down, and believe it or not, one of ours is change. And so I think the little tagline underneath it says, you can't stay the best if you stay the same. So the bottom line for me when it comes to change is that it needs to be an expectation, and that we're not doing everything as well as it can be done every day. We want to fall into the trap and think that we're the smartest and the best at whatever we're doing, and that we can stay doing it forever that way and we'll stay the smartest and the best, but it's not true. So when we talk about change, one of those things that we carried into the Microvellum integration was, there are certainly ways that we do things right now that work, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways that also work, right? That don't affect our ultimate outcome, which is a very, very high-end residential product that's completely customizable to whatever the client wants. So there might be maybe slightly different joinery inside of a carcass box in Microvellum than another software company, but is it really that big of a deal? I mean, if I think the cabinet's going to fall apart, absolutely. But if it's something that, is an existing construction method that requires minimal adjustment for us to adapt to. Being flexible enough to adjust to some of the things out of the box was something that I think got us up and running faster than we would have. But I'm sure everybody at Microvellum would tell you that there were certain things that I was not willing to adjust to, and that required some of the rework and some of the custom development that we did, because I felt that it would affect the ultimate product that we were trying to sell, or slow down the process unnecessarily. Again, ultimate objective being efficiency. There were times where a workaround just wasn't acceptable. We need to find the work through so that it works every time this way, or you create a checkbox or a radio button that just says it's either or, but the result is a known result when you check that box. That was the big thing.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the Microvellum team did work hard to support you to make sure we were able to meet both your needs and work within the confines of the software to accomplish those. So that's great. Absolutely.
I think that there was a lot of teamwork that went back and forth between Stillwater and Microvellum. But I think it's got to go both ways. There were times that I had to change the way we were going to do a process or what our expectations were, because either the software just wasn't developed to that point yet, or it wasn't a deal breaker, right? Like at the end of the day, the stuff was still going to be efficiently produced and it was still going to meet the client expectations. So we could make a small adjustment and kind of meet in the middle. And then, like I said, there were some times where we just had to take the time that it took to do the custom development and make sure that we could get our product out the door correctly.
For sure. Yeah, well, maybe it'd be a good time to actually see some of those things. You're talking about some of the things that you've had custom developed into your software that you've done or we've done, and then some of this accuracy that you're touting. I'd be intrigued to see if we can maybe share that.
Yeah, so I think probably the first thing, and I should have mentioned this previously, we didn't obviously know Microvellum at the time. I'm going to share the screen. So I was going to say, while we're working on that, we did not have an AutoCAD depth. So Microvellum, for new customers out there, Microvellum is based on an AutoCAD platform. So a lot of the commands and things that work in AutoCAD obviously become part of Microvellum, the way that it's integrated. So we were trying to learn AutoCAD and Microvellum at the same time. So that was, potentially part of our learning curve that was bigger. Somebody else with some AutoCAD experience might have a quicker time about it. I think that one of the major goals for us was to be able to produce an accurate set of drawings, like I said, that was shop ready, engineered drawings, but that the client could see. So setting up all of our templates for layout approval, for finishes, for product details like, a corbel or a decorative piece of molding, figuring out how to accomplish that, took a little bit of time, but I think ultimately made a more professional presentation with regard to the AutoCAD drawings and the sign-off blocks for customers and for designers. The other thing, like I mentioned before, is although that slows down the front office a little bit to get all of those right and accurate, the ultimate result, again, was because we're generating these from the same database. We're generating these drawings, the same database that's going to make our engineered production ready drawings. We were able to save quite a bit of time on the back side of the production process. So I think everybody can see our screen.
Yeah, we can see it now, Ben. Thank you.
Yep. So one of these, examples would be, can you even see my mouse? Yeah. All right.
Oh yeah, you're in business.
Yeah. One of these examples would be just sign-off blocks. I'm sure this is pretty standard stuff in commercial world. All these details, these are all generated inside of Microvellum as part of these drawings. No secondary software and no rework required before we go to the shop. These are the exact same drawings that get printed and put in the production binder. That was kind of a big driving factor for me with, door style information, wood species information, finishing information. And we'll talk a little bit more about finishing, in a little bit. The elevation symbols, this one set being able to show these detailed drawings and then show a three-dimensional kind of rendered view, model some crazy metal legs off the internet, be able to tie all of this into one drawing, has improved, our overall communication with the client for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That looks good. So as far as these drawings are concerned, these are drawings that you show across the board to both the client and to your shop personnel, installers. Everyone uses the same set of drawings. Is that what I'm understanding?
Absolutely. And I just feel like there's much less chance you're going to have a miscommunication, right? Like, I talked to the client about that and it was on their drawings, but I forgot to give you the little elevation tag in the shop. The other thing to point out here, and again, I don't know how many people are watching or what type of software they use, if any, but once you draw this Microvellum product in here, all of these other drawings are reading that product. So these elevations, these 2D elevations, they automatically adjust. If I was to change this cabinet from 23 1/8, it would automatically adjust the drawings, the dimension lines, all of that would happen automatically, and then I would reprint the drawings. So that has saved an awful lot of time as well, where you're not going back in here. If this is just kind of static 2D geometry in AutoCAD, then when you change something, you have to go back and change all of your individual lines. Where again, in Microvellum, you're able to change the product prompt, the overall product, which is a three-dimensional product, and all of this 2D information changes automatically. So that's been quite a time saver. And then you get consistent detailed drawings on every project because they're programmed. It doesn't take extra steps that somebody has to remember.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you were also telling me about a few things that you had done as far as, the default shipping data that you guys wanted to customize some things to make it more leverageable for the residential market and for what you guys do. Do you have any examples of that you would like to share with us?
Absolutely. I think that probably one of the most appealing things about Microvellum, as challenging as it has been to learn some of the data and how the products work, is just how flexible each of the products is. So, for instance, and this was a product that we built that didn't come out of the Microvellum, shipping library at all, but that we were able to customize. Very simple product, really, but incredibly adaptable and practical. So this product has the ability to, so it's just like a tall refrigerator panel. Looks pretty simple, right? It has a hardwood nose and 2 pieces of plywood on the side. But once you have some understanding, some knowledge of how the program works, all of these prompts create different machining data, right? So if I was just to change the size of that product into something different with a different hardwood nose, different plywood side, what's nice is that changed, my 2D elevation changed with the correct dimensioning. And as soon as I processed this work order, all of the machining data changed, all on the same prompts. And then once you have a better understanding of the library data and how to develop it, more and more things become possible. So checkboxes, face frame left side. If that was all we were going to do, we can just say, hey, is it redrawn? Oh, that's a bad example. Oh yeah, sorry, hold on. Let me do a rear. What? And then you can tell I'm not usually the one in engineering, right?
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So all these different commands and so forth, not all of them are ones that came with the software. You able to add in
There we
your own
go.
functionality and expand on it, it looks like.
Right. So there we go. So now with a couple of prompts, I added a face frame on the side of that same filler with an inset door inside of the face frame, and closed off the back with another piece of hardwood. So this could be floating out in the middle of a room and be finished all four sides. It can be finished just left in face. It can be finished left and right in face. So all of those become prompts. You can just create a square box out of this if you just need a column. But the guys in the shop have the right information, the right machining information gets out there. So again, pretty simple product, but incredibly practical and functional. We use these all the time. You know, this is just a floating shelf. Lots of people build in residential, build these types of things. They have different ways to mount them to the wall. You know, this one, when we built it, we just made it so, you know, we could say, well, I want it to be a little bit taller and a little bit narrower, and I need the left end finished. So now you get that piece of hardwood mitered in on the left end, but not the right end. All your parts and pieces, part names, part labels, everything goes to the shop correctly. And it's that quick to modify the finished product that you want. And again, when you're using Microvellum to display your drawings as well, those drawings are updated, the machining data is updated, and all of the production information for the binder is updated from your design team or your engineering team, changing those couple of prompts.
Nice. It's good to see that you guys have expanded your product to become more of what you needed and not just a stock software.
Exactly. And I think this one would be kind of an example of a pretty high level product change. So basically, we have a customer that wanted slab doors. These are going to be black walnut slab doors. And these two lines here are actually a dadoed relief that we're going to inlay a polished metal band into black walnut doors. Okay, so this would be a tremendous amount of communication and custom setup in most instances to have a room full of doors that are all different sizes that all require this metal band to be equidistant from the edge of the door. Not only that, every time you were going to make a change to the product itself, you'd have to go back and redo all of your 2D lines to show the metal band. Nothing would have been tied to it. So what we did is we built this door as a subassembly option inside of our product library. Okay, so we have a metal inlay door on an MDF core, so we can have that as walnut or cherry or whatever the veneer needs to be for a specific job. We control that in the material file. But now, because it's built in as a subassembly and we understand the intent there, when we change this to a different width and or a different height, all of the door information changes as well. So now we have two completely different doors, but all the metal band information, not only does it remain graphically equidistant from the edge of the door, this is actually generating G-code for the CNC machine. So when it cuts this door out, it's going to put that groove in the correct spot on every single door. So you can imagine the amount of time savings that has. Now, it took several hours to program that door, but now for every room that we do it, we save that time over and over and over. For every time the design changes or the size of the cabinet changes or the size of the room changes, all of that door information is now parametric and tied to the cabinet itself.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, so putting a little extra time into it, you're able to see an ROI on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things about Microvellum is being able to understand that it's not simple, but it's incredibly powerful. So if you're willing to look past the 6 or 8 or 10 hours that it's going to take to develop it and translate that into how much better and smoother is it going to flow through the shop if everybody knows what the plan is. Or in this case, it's actually going to cut these grooves for us. Like no one in the shop really even needs to know what the plan is, because coming off the CNC, you're going to have this door with the groove in it. It's like, oh, that's where the metal goes. You just edge band this door and put your metal components in. So this one we were able to mostly do completely in the engineering department using Microvellum.
Very good. Yeah, so instead of having a bunch of notes and handwritten things going to the shop, reminding various personnel on what to do at what point, it's just obvious, and it shows up on your reporting, it sounds like, too.
Exactly.
That's great. So, that being said, are there some, you've mentioned some examples of reports that you guys have done to improve your accuracy. Would you share a couple of those with us too?
Sure. So is this one? Couple of examples would be, so this was something that we worked through with Microvellum as well. A lot of commercial shops, which is obviously where Microvellum kind of was developed inside of the commercial cabinet industry. A lot of commercial shops, I'd say the vast majority, because they're using pre-finished materials and slab doors, they just have the CNC machine cut their hinges. So you drill a couple holes and bore the big pocket for the hinge cut, and you're done. Your doors go to the edge bander and they snap on the cabinet. In the residential market, that virtually never happens, because what we have is primarily a 5-piece door. Okay, so we're going to manufacture a hardwood door that is offline as far as the CNC is concerned. So the ultimate objective, again, for efficiency, is that without tape measures and double checking, the CNC operator and the edge bander operator and the assembly guy, they can just crank out boxes, and they can just keep cutting stuff, keep edge banding, and keep assembling cabinets, whether they're framed or frameless, put boxes together. In an entire different section of the building, you could take the doors, and using a report, you could know exactly where the hinges needed to be bored, so you could put them on a rack and send them to paint. Now, the boxes and the trims and the doors and the drawer fronts, they're all going to meet up in paint so that they can get the same finish at the same time and be efficient as far as that's concerned. But we didn't want to have a guy inside of a cabinet double checking, well, where's the hinges for this door? Where are they supposed to go so that they snap on the cabinet? So like I was saying earlier, this report, its only function is to communicate where the hinges get bored. It's in a tab with the rest of the door reports in the binder. And if you had the left door right here for cabinet 102, and here's the right door for cabinet 102, here's the 3 hinge locations that we're going to bore, or 2 hinge locations, sorry, that we're going to bore on that door, that's going to snap right on the door after paint, right in final assembly, so nobody has to wonder about it. The other thing we're doing here is, for those of you who operate door boring machines, sometimes it's nice to have a left and a right stop. So inside of the report designer, we had this do math and say, from the bottom of the door, you're going to be 76.2 or 3 inches. Here's your second location from the bottom of the door, or here's your location from the top of the door. So you could always know where your second stop would be off the back side of the door. And that's just an example of kind of a custom reporting. You can write formulas inside the report that spits out more usable data as well. So on this door down here, we have 3 hinge locations, and the third hinge is here, or 3 inches from the top.
Gotcha. So you guys spent quite a bit of time developing the library data to help your engineering and produce out to the shop, but then also spend some time in the built-in reporting portion of the software.
We've spent a tremendous amount of time in reporting, because I think that at the end of the day, payroll is our #1 expense. So how do we get better information to the guys who are actually producing cabinetry so that they can be building the next cabinet or boring the next set of doors, instead of walking up front to ask a question, or trying to find a carcass that's buried somewhere so they can double check a hinge location before they bore the door. No one even looks at the cabinet anymore before we bore all the doors and they're painted. We don't even check any of this, because it works.
Nice.
And another one, and this was a big one, which raised some eyebrows when I first started talking about it. But again, because of the history where Microvellum didn't have a lot of residential depth, I'll say, and they've been playing catch up, but doing a really good job as far as developing the data. Something else that I've never seen in any engineering software out of the box is finishing information. And it makes sense when you're doing commercial, 99% of it doesn't get finished. It's laminates and melamines and it's done. Once you edge band it and assemble it, it gets wrapped up and goes on a truck. That's not our reality. So having access to a database where you can enter your own lookup tables, enter your own data sets, and then reference those specific to products or to projects has been an enormous advantage. So for instance, we had this code. It's a 4-digit code. And inside of, we had an Excel spreadsheet that tracked, okay, finish number 1030. What does that mean? Well, this is the lacquer code for mixing the base tint code. Any finish type would be a solid color with a glaze. What is the sheen of the clear coat? So we had some basic information that we knew about this finish, but we want to communicate this more clearly with the paint shop as well. So it's not enough for us to just build the cabinets. We have to get them on a truck, and that always involves a finish, okay? So what we did on this report is we said, we know the product list that's in this work order. I mean, Microvellum has that. It has the width and the height and the depth of every product. So we just said, hey, about how many square feet of total finished area do we have? We have 275 square feet. Okay. And just to make it easier for the painters, because for those of you who haven't operated a paint shop, it can be a hot mess when you just have racks and racks of doors and they're all maple. Well, which racks get which color and how many of them are there, and are they all together so that when I spray them, I can be efficient and make sure I finished everything when I was in that color and that was loaded in the spray equipment. So we just grabbed some high level data and said, here's about the total square footage for this package that's getting finished 1030. There's 48 doors and drawer fronts. There's 22 finished ends and panels. So this would be appliance panels, finished ends, everything. There's 29 drawer boxes. This is a pretty big kitchen. And there's one finished end, which would be a finished end specifically without a panel, right? So there's one carcass that the end needs to get finished. So this is kind of a little clue at that. And then what we did is we said, well, if we know it's a solid color glaze, that means it gets primed and painted before we glaze it. And we know that it's 374 square feet. Then down here, if we get one coat of primer, we need 2.41 gallons of primer. We need 2 coats of pigment. So that's 3.83 gallons of pigment, and the same for the clear coat. So now 6 weeks before this gets to the painters, they know how much product in this color they need to have mixed and ready to go. This has been an enormous advantage to the paint shop, because now instead of looking at drawings and kind of, guessing, oh, I think that's about 3 gallons. And then at the end of the job, again, if you work in a paint shop, at the end of the job, you're always a gallon short. And then you have to try to get a perfect tint match because most of the product's already done. This gives us a starting point. For instance, this 3.83 might be a tight number. They might mix 5 gallons, right? But they know that they're going to have enough. It's all boxed together. It's all exactly the same color before they start the job. And that can be waiting for this project to be built and rolled down instead of scrambling around when they see the package.
Very nice. And you're extracting all this information from the project database, and it's allowing you to get these accurate numbers?
I am extracting the finishing information and the finish type from a table that we added to our product database. And then obviously extracting the square footage and quantity information from the product database. So the report structure, again, can be an added level of complexity, but in order to get this much information out, you need the level of complexity. It just takes a little bit of time to figure out how to leverage all of that information into a report that makes sense to a painter. Standing there saying, oh, sweet, I need 5 gallons. Got it. I mean, that's as simple as you can boil it all down. He doesn't have to go count doors. He doesn't have to, estimate and look at the drawings and guess about how much the last job took when he had it and it was about the same size. None of that has to happen. It's just like, oh, it's that many gallons. I'll go get that. I'll mix that up. The other thing is, because this finishing information lives at a specific product level, not at the project level or the room level. This finish 1030 can be in the same room with this finish code. So these 4 products are stained a totally different color than all of the products that are finished 1030. They're in the same work order, but, and I couldn't take the time to show you everything, but basically when a product is assembled, we have a series of labels. A lot of people use product labels. Here's what you're looking at. We took our product labels, gutted that report, and rebuilt it so that every single product has finish end, left or right information and finish code information. So you can quickly group these 4 floating shelves because they don't even have the same number on the sticker. So even if these get separated in the paint shop, they can get grouped back up quickly because the label tells you what finish code is going on that product.
Okay, so you're tying your reports to your part labels as well, and then do you also use product labels to kind of bring it all back together?
Absolutely. So when this is assembled, it'll get a product label that tells you, it's Matthew's Kitchen, finish code 112, and it's item number 201, and it's a floating shelf. That's all on a sticker that's on this part. So again, anybody at any time can pick up any part or any assembled product in the shop and know what project, what room, what finish, and what product number is inside of that room at any time. And then what we did is we said, okay, just for the painters, now we're just going to show you a product list. How much product do you have? We're going to show you this product list by finish code. So here's all the products that you have that are getting this finish on them.
Nice.
So all the moldings, all the trims, the toe kicks, anything that needs to be this finish gets grouped up on this report. So you can check all of these off and make sure that you have your entire package before you push it all into the spray booth.
So did you have reporting information like this before, or is this just something you've developed since you started using Microvellum software?
This was one of the major reasons that we wanted to go to software like Microvellum, is an ability to customize the information that the production team got. Instead of being told, here, this is what you're allowed to communicate to them, we're able to take every part and piece out of the database and build a report like this that we want, or that our paint foreman wants. So this to me was one of the major reasons. Reporting and communicating, again, being the ultimate objective to become more efficient, was one of the major reasons to kind of bite the bullet and make the switch in something as integral as the engineering software.
Gotcha. So there was a question that came up in our Q&A here, Ben.
Okay.
The question was, this would be from your experience, how many people did you have involved in product development for reports and for data to kind of get, this dialed into the way you guys wanted things?
So on my team, I have one guy that did all the reporting with me. And that, basically, it was my accountant. And when I bought Microvellum, I told him, hey, I will wade through all of the engineering data and the machining and the CNC and the G code and all of that. I just need you to own reporting. And so he was a gamer and he said, okay. So I haven't built any of the reports myself. I just know the information that I want on them. Then we take them up to the shop and someone says, hey, you forgot this, or wouldn't it be cool if we also had that? We rebuild the report, try it on the next work order, print it out. And over the course of 6 months, we built a production binder that is incredibly detailed and very accurate. So one guy on reporting, to answer the question. The product development, it's so hard because it depends on how many customizations you need to do, obviously. I would say this, the new Microvellum ship library has a lot of these products in it and a lot of these modifications in it. But if you're an existing Microvellum user, upgrading the library can be a challenge. So I would say I had 2 main people working on the library development fixes and customizations with me over the course of the first year that we owned the software in particular.
Gotcha. So during that year, or were you you weren't completely out of production, you were still making products, you were just dialing in the software to be more useful and more specific to your needs in the shop?
Yeah, I mean, it's ready to cut parts. You have to write the post processor, and they have to tie if you have a CNC machinery, I mean, it takes a couple weeks probably to get all that going, but you can grab a product out of the library and cut parts out of the box. The question is, in residential especially, all the little nuances about how you finish the ends, or how you want to treat the end of the peninsula or the island that you want to build this square box. There's a way to do it. But the thing that I like about Microvellum is, let's say today I had a workaround and I got the job done. Like you said, we weren't shut down. We got jobs out the door. But maybe it's more painful than it needs to be. Maybe it takes longer than it needs to. So you circle back and you say, okay, every time we have this condition, our engineers have to do these 5 steps. Well, in Microvellum, you can build one button that does all 5 steps. And you just say, hey, if this condition is true, check this box. Boom, everything, it's all done, and it goes to the shop and it's consistent. So the last year and a half would have been all those types of buttons, right? Where, okay, we're getting product out the door, but we can just do it better. We can do it faster, and we can do it more consistently, so the guys know what to expect. If we take these 4, 5, 6, 7 steps and we group them all up into a single checkbox that anybody up front can say, oh, that's true, click, and all the engineering data changes. That's been super, super powerful.
Yeah, it's kind of the natural evolution, get up and moving, and then start modifying it further to more easily fit into your environment. We had one other question come up here. As you had mentioned earlier, learning AutoCAD was a portion of your learning curve, so to say.
Yes.
And the other question was, since the program does utilize an Excel-based system, did you have some Excel background before you had gotten into the software, or was that also part of that learning time?
No, I'll say that I was very familiar with Excel, but wow, there's a lot of depth to Excel too. So I know how things reference, and I felt comfortable, but looking back, probably too comfortable, because there's a lot of referencing that happens inside of the Microvellum product specifically that is specific to Microvellum. It uses an Excel structure, but when you're referencing the material file for a specific part thickness to make this change parametric, you have to understand those aren't normal Excel formulas, okay, if that makes sense. You have to understand inside of Microvellum what you actually want to reference in order to get the results out that you're shooting for. But the basic structure of Microsoft Excel formulas is very alive and well, yes. But so there's 7 main spreadsheets inside of Microvellum. So for you Excel nerds out there, there's 7 main spreadsheets inside of Microvellum, and each of those has 50 sheets in it. So what you basically have at the end of the day is 350 spreadsheets all talking to each other. So I don't have that much Excel experience. How about that for an answer?
Sure, I gotcha. No, I know from my experience, I'd actually taken Excel classes, and I probably in the past would have pat myself on the back thinking I knew how to do things because I made a home-based budget in Excel. But
Right.
as you know, as far as training, one thing I could recommend from personal experience would just be, if you can learn anything about formula writing, that's the most beneficial. And then through
Absolutely.
training, we can help you guys learn the rest. But pivot tables and all the pretty pictures and everything, hey, they're great for certain markets, but for what we do, it's strictly just the formula structure. But
Absolutely. In particular for product development, right? There's a lot of referencing that happens inside of products. Yes.
right. So hey, kind of off subject, but another question came in regarding, what other softwares are you using for such things as purchasing or estimating, and how does Microvellum work with that?
Oh man, how long do you have? See, I'm supposed to watch the clock. I'm kind of wordy.
Under 5 minutes.
Under 5 minutes. Okay.
For this question.
Without getting too in the weeds, I purchased and threw away 3 other packages that all said they could do what we wanted from an ERP, which is a super vague general term. The system that we're using now, we actually built. So the way that Microvellum specifically integrates to that is we take the material file for purchasing, we take the material file and we initiated our own internal reference number system. So if you have a 10127, we know that 101 is maple and part 27 is, a piece of 3/4 by 3.5 inch hardwood by the lineal foot. So every IR number that we have comes from Microvellum. Again, we wrote a report that's called a BOM report or bill of materials, and it summarizes all of that. And at this point, we take all those IR numbers and we punch them into our ERP system that tracks all the rest of our processes. And we leverage Microvellum just for the engineering data and the cut listing and the total bill of materials. One of our upgrades or iterations that we're going to do is to automate that process as well, where since we're getting that report, I know that we can work through a system where we automatically dump that into our project coordination software.
No, I got you. So a direct export from the factory data set to your information or your ERP system.
Exactly. Right now, it probably takes, for a big work order, it probably takes 6 or 8 minutes to punch that in, because we have a very specific code. So there's only one thing that lines up. You don't have to go through an entire list of things and pick the right one. You just punch in the code, boom, give it a quantity, and you're on to the next line item. So it doesn't actually take that long. It's not at the top of the list, but the software that we have that tracks purchasing and inventory, it also does a complete CRM. So customer, from first point of contact, we have a section of that software that's all of our leads, just people that are talking to us. Then we can convert from a lead into a project when we're actually awarded the project. Everything about that project is logged and tracked inside of our software. We can assign each other activities. We can send this one to engineering or send it back to purchasing for a requote. And then when it gets through the engineering process and the production review process and gets sent to the shop, then the Microvellum binder, they kind of go through the process together. The Microvellum binder and the engineering data is tracked using the CRM software. And as soon as that binder is done and ready for purchasing, we print that report and enter it into the purchasing system.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That's a nice, you did a good job of cliff noting that
Okay.
software. Any ERP system is not easy to put under 2 minutes of explanation, but you did a good job.
It's not.
So, hey, I guess, the last thing I have to ask you is, like, so we've seen what you've gotten to today, as far as, future growth and ongoing automation, how does machinery and software, look into your long-term business plan? What are your upcoming goals that you can share with us?
Well, I think that, some of my goals are pretty big, but I guess even going back 2, 3, 4 years, so before Microvellum, first getting a CNC machine, being in the construction industry my whole life, I think that I would not be alone. Probably everybody who's on the call or on listening struggles finding good help, right? Like when you find somebody that really fits on your team and you want to get, it's like, pure gold. So if the growth pattern that we've had, 75 to 100% growth year over year, if we want to sustain that, there's really only 2 ways to do that in my mind. It's either to hope that you find that many more good people, which really is laughable, or figure out a way to automate processes inside of your business that allow the people you have to get more work out the door. And so I went with kind of the second option, thinking that there was probably more likelihood that I would be able to automate things than find twice as many good people. So that was another big factor to the move to Microvellum, is you have to have the right technology platform to support automation. So for all the pain and stuff that it was, we're through it. It's incredible. We see the improvement even on mostly archaic machinery compared to what we have, kind of on the horizon. But the ultimate goal would be, how do we have highly qualified people that we have, but we don't want to pay that guy to cut square parts because we have a CNC machine. We don't want to pay the guy to drill holes and put drug glides in because we have engineering data that will put 3 holes in exactly the right spot for height and depth, so it just snaps in the cabinet. those are easy ones to, I think, ROI and say, why would I pay a guy to do that when I can work through it in 2 or 3 or 4 tries on the software, and then it's set and it's done and it comes out right every time. I think the ultimate kind of marriage of machinery and software, right, would or has opened up this door of the potential for robotics in certain parts of the shop as well, where you spend a lot of time moving material. Well, you can automate that. You spend a lot of time loading and unloading the CNC machine. You can automate that as well. Again, you're paying people. In my mind, I'm already spending that money, right, in payroll. So every 2 weeks, I'm spending that money. So
Right.
what can I do to take the relatively simple tasks off of them so that they can do more of the more complex tasks that we can't automate? That's kind of where I see, I won't say the only opportunity for growth, but I'm going to say the majority of our growth in the next 3 to 5 years is going to come through automation and not personnel.
Interesting. Yeah, we're seeing that more and more throughout the industry, and I think that's you're not the only one to have noticed that, especially with the cost of the automation, robotics, so forth seems to be dropping as well, so which is going to help facilitate that for sure.
Absolutely.
So hey, I got one more question I wanted to ask you before we finish out here. It came in, I think it's worth mentioning. The question was, how many employees do you have in design and engineering? And then do your designers or engineers, or let's see, do your designers engineer the products in Microvellum? So
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think is probably something I should have pointed out earlier. I wouldn't say I have 2 designers and 2.5 engineers. I have a guy that logs in remotely 3 days a week. I wouldn't say that either one of my designers would claim to engineer Microvellum products. Okay, they understand how they want it to look, how they want it to flow. They're great at talking with the client and colors and the whole bit, right? But what's beautiful about Microvellum is the more you program the product, you can create engineering data from relatively simple prompts. So these designers can get what they want. They can get the width, height, and depth, the flexibility that they need, put the crown molding on it, and get this picture to the client. But it might not be completely ready for the shop, but it's a long ways down the road. The picture looks good. And what we do is when the engineers repeatedly find something, or they're like, man, every time this comes from design, we have to blow this one up and redo it so it's ready for the shop. The beautiful thing about Microvellum is you can go back and create a checkbox for that. So you tell the designer, hey, next time, just click this, which option that you want here. And now when it goes to engineering, it's ready to go. So we're always iterating that. So we're not through it. We don't have perfect shop ready drawings from our designers, but we have substantially closed the gap from a pretty picture and then having to completely redraw the entire project in order to get machining data, if that makes sense.
totally does. That's great. What was the quote you said about change? What was your guys' motto there?
You can't stay the best if you stay the same.
I like that. Yeah, you can't stay the best. So yeah, always being willing to adjust and improve and find better, more efficient ways.
And I'll say this, if that's not enough incentive for some old dog who doesn't like new tricks, the other way that I'd put that is, if you're not willing to do that, I can guarantee you somebody else is, and they're going to put you out of business. Like it's coming. All the robotics, it's all coming. So if you don't embrace it and start to understand it, it's just a ticking time bomb in my mind.
Gotcha. No, it's definitely the wave of the direction that we are seeing is going to more and more automation, and having a software that's open source that allow you to communicate with multiple softwares, multiple pieces of machinery, is a big thing. One last question I forgot to ask you. What brand of machinery do you guys work with?
We have a CR Onsrud router that we've enjoyed a lot. I like the fact that it's made in the US. I've been to their factory. And we get pretty good support. We're in a pretty rural area, so only a 3-hour drive for a tech is a win for us.
Right. Don't have to pay for a long distance. That's great.
Exactly.
Okay, well, great. Well, hey, Ben, I really appreciate you taking some time. If you have anything else you'd like to add, by all means do so. I really appreciate that. Do you have anything you want to throw in here before we close out today?
Not specifically. I mean, I'm glad a couple people asked some questions. I hope that we're able to answer them effectively or help a little bit. And yeah, it's good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how you've managed your growth. I mean, to be able to see that much growth over 3 years of itself is going to be a challenge, along with, bringing on new software, new machinery, and allowing us to help you facilitate that has been great. So best to you for your ongoing growth and profitability. And yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for your help.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks guys again for helping out with that. Again, lots of great information there that we were able to cover there. And if you want to learn more about Microvellum, about what we do, and maybe adapt some of what Ben there's done in his business, you can shoot us an email, Mike, at live@microvellum.com, and we will follow up with you. And that'll about do it for today's episode. And we definitely, again, like to thank Ben and Isaac for coming on, for sharing the story about what you're doing in your business. I think we covered a lot of great topics, a lot of great insight there on how you adapted and adopted Microvellum, and how you've really taken the reins to make Microvellum your software, from a reporting process down to the intelligence that you built there into your products that you built. So again, this will wrap up our 2018 live schedule. With the holidays coming up, we will be taking a short break, but we will be back in January, and our schedule is already filling up. In fact, in January, we're going to be taking some time to get more under the hood, and we're going to get into some custom product creation led by one of our technicians. It's going to be an hour long, so you definitely don't want to miss that one. And we're also lining up a few more library development related episodes, and we'll be inviting a few more special guests that maybe you've seen on some recent live episodes. So watch your emails and check our website for those registration links. And also, if you would like to be featured on Microvellum Live or tell your story, kind of like what Ben did today, we'd like to hear from you. You can always email us at live@microvellum.com, and we'd love to have a chance to learn how you are leveraging software in your business. So on behalf of our team here at Microvellum, I'd like to thank you once again for joining us, and we will see you next time here on Microvellum Live.